Uh, I was diagnosed with meningitis. My eyes turned, and you could only just see the white part of the eye. That was the time they told me, no, I have a problem with my vision. Good afternoon. My name is Hazel Naika. I was born on the 9th of May 1963 at Motella Farm. I've got, I had two children. One is late, which she has left two kids, Siyabonga Sean Naika and Pietilia Naika. My son's name is Emmanuel Naika. When I was 5 years old, and that year a lot of children had a TB. And that was the year my brother was born. My little sister also had TB, but my mom took me to the bathroom, gave me a bath. When she heard somebody screaming, she just left me like that and she ran to go and see what's happening. When she came back, my eyes turned and you could only just see the white part of the eye. Then she rushed me to one of her cousins. She told them that no, I need to be rushed to the hospital. The reason being, I've got TB meningitis. TB meningitis is the sickness where you get infected in the brain. There's a fluid in your brain where you need to have a lumbar puncture, which they have done, and they drew the water from my brain through my spine. Then, a little later, I was diagnosed with meningitis, and then they had to drain out the water, and then I became totally blind. I had a locked jaw. I had to be fed through my nostrils. One side was oxygen, the other side was glucose. That was the way I used to live. When they used to give me injections, both my hands and my feet used to be tied. Even if people used to come and see me, if the family members, anybody used to come and see me, I never used to know anything. I was really like a person that was dead. After praying, then was the only time I opened up my mouth. And the first thing I had, I think, was custard. That's the first liquid that they gave me to eat. The time when they told me I was blind, I was taken to a doctor's room, and then the doctor told me that for me to be certified blind, he threw a coin on the floor, and then he asked me to point if I can see where the coin is thrown. I said, no, I can't see it. Then that was the time they told me, no, I have a problem with my vision. What that meant at that time, I didn't know. What I understood by being visually impaired at that time, I didn't really, I was still a little kid. So it's difficult for a little kid to know what's being visually impaired. Because now, I haven't been to school. I don't even know anything about what they were, talking about until I went to school. When I found out that I was visually impaired, they put me into a school. It was in Pietermaritzburg, a boarding school. The name of the school was New Horizon School for the Blind, where I started from grade R, and I matriculated there. While at school, my aim was to become a switchboard operator because I'd love working with phones, and I've got a good memory of remembering numbers. My dream It changed when I left, when I finished my matric. I wanted to go into business, and that's what I am doing now at the very moment. The difficult part of being visually impaired. The thing is, when you are visually impaired, you don't really know which way to go, which way to turn, and people are not, so helpful in when they see a person that's visually impaired. And the first thing you'll have to learn when you are visually impaired is mobility. In my situation, from a kid till I became an adult, I didn't do any mobility training. Mobility training, it's actually called orientation and mobility. Orientation and mobility is where you are taught how to use a simple cane. It's the white cane with the black rubber on the top. It's got a plastic tip at the bottom. It's either straight or it's a ball that you roll from side to side when you are walking. When you hold the cane, you got to hold the cane in a position like where you are shaking hands with somebody. And then you got to hold the cane against your tummy. The part that moves, it's just the bottom part of the cane that moves from left to right. Once you put the cane onto your left-hand side, your right foot moves forward. And when you put it onto the alternative side, the alternative leg moves forward. Okay, the three most painful things being visually impaired. My first incident, I remember, at home, I had no food. So I said, okay, let me go to the bank. And I usually go alone because I always like being independent. So when I came to the bank, I asked the person to assist me. I thought the person was a security guard, only to find out this person was robbing me of my money. So he told me to insert my card into the slot. I did. Then he asked me to punch my PIN code, which I did. And now I'm waiting for the money to come out, only to find out the guy just took the card and he disappeared. And then he went and he would draw that money at another ATM. So I was left penniless at that time. So the second incident was when I was crossing the robot. I came from work, going to the train station. I was walking with one of my fellow colleagues that we came out of work, going to the train station. So while I was crossing the road, so we visually impaired people, we've got a way to sign to the drivers. When you see that cars on your side is moving, you know you've got to move. And the ones that if it stands still in front of you, you know, oh, that's a time for you to cross. So when I lifted up my cane to show the driver, right, it's time for me to cross, he didn't take notice. He just came and bumped me. I fell flat on my back. And then they called for the paramedics to come, where they came and laid me on a you could call it a stretcher sort of, because I was strapped to like a plank and carried onto a stretcher, put into the ambulance and taken to hospital, where I went and got treated for it. Well, I slept overnight at the hospital at that time. I only went home the next morning. Then the third one is when, in the olden days where we used to use paraffin stoves, the ones you had to pump. So at that time, for a visually impaired person to light that stove, if the paraffin doesn't come out, you've got to use your fingers to feel where the hole to put in the pricker. If you know what a pricker is, when you pump the paraffin, it has to come up so you can light the stove. So what I did put the pricker there, and then I pumped the stove. The paraffin came up. I didn't unlock the screw. I lit the stove and the fire shot up. When that happened, my hair got burnt, my eyelashes got burnt, and my eyebrows. But I managed to dampen down the fire, and then I managed to continue cooking with a paraffin stove. What motivates me is when I get up in the morning, I like to do things and to be positive. I want to be a better person in life. I want to show people that being visually impaired, it's not the end of the world. Well, you can say it's the beginning, because once you are visually impaired, people feel, oh, shame, she can't do anything for herself. But people that can see will be surprised. The things that a visually impaired person can do is much better than what they can do. Because if you ask a visually impaired person to clean up the place, they'll do it, I think, 100 times better than a person that's got vision. And even anything a visually impaired person do, if you look at it, you will think that this person can see. Because I'm talking from experience. There was once when the nurses from the clinic here at Ireleng, they came here to check on me, where they brought my medication. And when they saw the house was cleaned and the washing that I washed and I had it in the bath, they asked, who did the washing? I said, it was me. They said, this washing looks so clean. Did you do it? I said, yes, I washed by hand. And who cleaned the house? I said, I cleaned the house. I swept the house, I cleaned up, I washed up all the dishes, dried them, and set them. They asked me, how do you sweep? I said, if you want to know how a blind person sweeps, the only way I use to sweep the house is by taking off my shoes, feeling the dirt with my feet, and then I use the broom to remove the dirt. So I move my feet around. So my feet is more or less like my eyes to see where the dirt is. And then I gather up the dirt, scoop it out, and throw it into the dustbin. Well, at the very moment, the only way I get income to make a living is the grant that I'm getting from government, and I'm working on a business that I just started just recently. I'm selling alcohol, so that little petty cash that I get from that business, that also puts food on my table. Well, the one that I would think of to gain more income, the opportunities that I'm looking on now, is the opportunity for me to open up my own brailing business, where I'm going to braille, like say if people need programming in braille, I'm available to braille, because I do have my own Perkins brailer. That's the machine that I use to braille. And yeah, then I'll take it from there and see which other avenues that I can, like I do a lot of handwork. So even if people need to learn handwork, I can teach them and like charge them a certain fee. That's another way to also make income. Like in 5 years' time, what I would like to achieve is to have my own brailing printing business, where even like for the supermarkets, like I'm sure you all must have seen in some of the chemists, they've got Panado that's written in braille, Grandpa that's written in braille. Who was the one that spoke for that? It was me Hazel Naika. I was the one that spoke at the legislature, saying that
things should be written in Braille. So even now with the supermarkets, even the stores, the grocery stores, the butchers, the fruit lovers, all those things on the shelves, things should be written in Braille. So we visually impaired people don't need to run around looking for assistance, waiting for half an hour to an hour for somebody to come and assist us. You must know how to read the thing on the shelves, and they must make rails for visually impaired persons to go to the till to go and pay their bills.